What do you know about Richard the Lionheart? Find out in this quiz. 7 questions in total, with the answers given at the end with a brief explanation. Let's begin. Question 1. Who were Richard's parents? A. Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine. B. Henry III and Eleanor of Provence. C. Edward I and Eleanor of Castile. Or D. Edward II and Isabella of France. Question 2. Where was Richard born? A. Bordeaux. B. London. C. Rouen. Or D. Oxford. Question 3. Which French king joined Richard on the Third Crusade? Was it A. Louis VII, B. Philip II, C. Louis IX, or D. Charles IV? Question 4. Who was Richard's queen? Was it A. Isabella of Gloucester, B. Philippa of Hainaut, C. Margaret of Anjou, or D. Berengaria of Navarre? Question 5. What happened to Richard on his return home from the Third Crusade? Was it A. He died, B. He was kidnapped, C. He got lost, or D. He was shipwrecked? Question 6. True or false? Richard had no children. Question 7. Richard was succeeded as King of England by John. Who was John in relation to Richard? A. His nephew, B. His cousin, C. His brother, or D. They were unrelated? For question 1, the answer is A. Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine. Richard's parents were one of the most famous royal couples of the Middle Ages. Initially a successful marriage, relations between Henry and Eleanor became strained as Henry, much younger than Eleanor, began to turn his eye towards younger women, despite Eleanor giving him a host of children, including 4 sons who survived into adulthood. Feeling spurned, Eleanor encouraged her sons, including Richard, to go into open rebellion against their father. What followed was Eleanor's imprisonment and years of fractious relations between Henry and his sons, 2 of whom predeceased him. Henry was still at war with Richard almost until his final breath. Richard did show contrition after his father's death, but it was too late. He and his brothers had inflicted much misery on the old king. The answer for question 2 is D. Oxford. It would be tempting to think Richard was born in France, but he was in fact born at Beaumont Palace, Oxford, in September 1157. The answer for question 3 is B. Philip II. Having been united against Henry II, relations between Richard, now King of England, and Philip soon soured during the Third Crusade. After the successful capture of the city of Acre, Philip abandoned the crusade, much to Richard's dismay, feigning illness in order to return home. Richard, however, knew Philip was now going to try and seize the lands that the King of England held in France, but Richard refused to follow Philip back to the west, and instead he continued the crusade. Over the years, hostilities between the two grew, and it seems that the French king was more than a little jealous of Richard. The answer for question 4 is D. Berengaria of Navarre. Berengaria is known as the Queen of England, who never actually set foot in the country her husband ruled over, although some historians do speculate that she may have visited the country on at least one occasion. The answer for question 5 is B. Richard was kidnapped. Having accomplished all he thought he could in the Holy Land without making an attempt to take Jerusalem, disappointing some of the Crusaders, Richard finally began the long journey home to Western Europe, but was ambushed on the way by the Duke of Austria, who then handed Richard over to the Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI, who demanded a massive ransom for the King of England. Fortunately for Richard, he still had his remarkably energetic mother, Eleanor, to call upon to raise the enormous ransom, and fine men like William Marshall to keep the peace in England during his long absence. The answer for question 6 is false. Whilst Richard had no sons or daughters with Berengaria, he did in fact have one bastard child, a boy named Philip, whose mother is unknown. The answer for question 7 is C. Brother. John was the youngest son of Henry II and seemingly completely untrustworthy. With Richard first away on crusade and then held captive, John tried to create all manners of trouble for Richard. On his eventual return, Richard forgave his one remaining brother, calling him just a child, despite the fact that John was in his late 20s by then. Somewhat inexplicably, Richard then made John his heir, despite the fact they had a nephew, Arthur, who ranked higher in the line of succession than John, albeit he was much younger. It would be a fateful decision, and John came to the throne in 1199 on Richard's death.